Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us in today's webinar. I am Ivana Ray Almora, a Policy and Project Officer in URADA, and I will be with you throughout today's event entitled Scaling Up SMEs in the Midst of Corona. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that this session is being recorded and that if you have any questions for our speakers today, please feel free to ask them via the chat. We've asked our speakers to monitor it and then try and answer your questions directly through the chat. And if we have time later on, we can have a discussion about the questions that you have posted. And you can also, at the end of the event, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask the questions directly to our speakers. So in the next slide, you can see that we have a packed agenda for you today, and our speakers are definitely ready to share their knowledge with all of us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Jose Blanques. Jose is the team leader of the coordination team of COSME, which is the EU program for the competitiveness of enterprises and small and medium-sized enterprises. Today, he will, among other things, tell us more about the SME path of the EU industrial strategy. So, Jose, the screen is yours.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to talk about SMEs which are very central to EU economy, and also to introduce 5 Interreg projects that are, to my opinion, very relevant for SME policy and SME development, and that touches all the aspects and all the issues that SMEs face and bring a response, I believe, at local level to these issues. Okay. Then I was talking about the importance of SMEs in European economy. Well, you would know or should know that, in fact, we have 23 million SMEs in the EU that represent around 99% of all companies. They provide 2/3 of all jobs in the EU and more than half of Europe's gross domestic product. Within that population of SMEs, we have a special category, which are the startups and scale-ups, which account scale-ups for an above average proportion of the economic growth, while at the same time having specific requirements for management, skills, capital, and organizational processes. Scale-ups and startups, that they help to stimulate innovation. They enhance competition. They accelerate job creation. They raise productivity and incomes in the EU, and they also play an important role in the renewal of the industrial base. Well, in the EU, you know, I mean, we are lagging a bit behind in terms of entrepreneurial spirit in comparison with the US or China, but I mean, there's no lack of innovative ideas or entrepreneurial spirit in Europe. So we noticed that many new firms don't make it beyond the first critical years of development or innovation. And some of them also, they try their luck in third country instead of tapping into a potential EU market of 500 million customer base. So what do we do at the level of the EU to better understand these issues and to develop policy actions that put SMEs in better conditions to start up and grow? So what do SMEs need to start up and grow? Every year, in fact, to better understand the situation, we publish a study, which is the SME Performance Review. We establish also by member states SBA fact sheets, where we measure conditions of access to finance, regulatory burden, access to markets, and other issues. We also publish a study, which is the survey on access to finance, to better understand the issues of access to finance. We also publish the DESI, which is the digital index. We make studies on innovation. And in 2020, in the first years of 2020, between January and May, we performed a survey, a flash Eurobarometer, where we asked those questions much precisely, directly to SMEs. And we noticed that for them, the biggest problems that they face for SMEs are regulatory obstacles or administrative burden. Also, payment delays come importantly in the panorama, that they face poor access to finance, or that they suffer lack of skills. I indicated in the slide the address where you can find the results of this flash Eurobarometer on SMEs. Also, other result interesting in that survey is that also that 62% of SMEs say that they are facing barriers to digitalization, or 70% of SMEs say they are facing barriers that prevent the enterprise from becoming sustainable. At the level of sustainability, we can see also that lack of consumers or customer demand comes out on top of the barriers to sustainability. At the level of digitalization, the most mentioned barrier is uncertainty about future digital standards. And about 1 in 5 SMEs lack skills amongst the barriers to engage in more sustainable practices, digitalize or innovate. So the survey also confirms that startups and scale-ups, they have the same major needs as SMEs, but there are some nuances. For instance, compared to SMEs, a higher share of startups and scale-ups have problems with access to finance and skills. And among the SMEs that plan to grow, a higher share of startups and scale-ups than SMEs in general plan to grow in other EU countries. So we can see there that startups and scale-ups are much more into internationalization or expanding abroad than the average SMEs. And a larger share of startups and scale-ups than normal SMEs have a strategy or action plan to digitalize. So deriving from all the studies we perform, what can we take out as conclusions in terms of policy development? What do they need to scale up? At the level of access to finance, there is a wide panel of instruments that are available in the market for SMEs to start up and grow. But in general, what we notice is that what is more suitable for startups and scale-ups or SMEs to grow is rather equity or alternative ways of financing. You know, in the EU, we have an above average proportion of dependency to loans and to debt. So the most used scheme for funding activities of SMEs is loan rather than venture capital. And we can conclude that venture capital in the EU is rather underdeveloped in comparison to other regions of the world. Venture capital is not the norm. So in terms of policy development, we can derive the conclusion is something where we have to put the emphasis in the coming years to develop venture capital funds, governments, support schemes, private business angels or business partners, as well as private equity funds. Because in fact, what startups and scale-ups need is not only to find financing, but also to find partners that can share business visions with them and that invest them more than in the company than a bank would do with a loan scheme. Also, what startups and scale-ups need is access to talent. And we have seen in the survey that in a bigger proportion than the average SMEs. So they need access to senior staff, skilled senior managers, skilled employees. They need specialist knowledge, in particular in the digitalization aspect, but also more generic functions like sales or marketing officers or accountants. Also, to expand and grow, they need access to international network and business partners to associate and to help them develop, not only to find the customer base abroad and to expand the company, finding new customers, but also partners that can invest in their company and can share their vision. Then also what they need is access to infrastructure and innovation partners, because average SMEs doesn't have the capacity or the equipment to test their products, to develop their products, or even to place them into the market. And this is particularly important with companies which have deep tech and manufacturing capacity. So these factors might involve access to advanced production facilities where products are developed, tested and manufactured, but also access to also excellent researchers. Then last but not least, SMEs need an access to a favorable business environment. They need that a predictable regulatory environment with less hurdles, less administrative burden, in order that they can develop and thrive in an environment where they can do business without too many hurdles. So deriving from this conclusion, what has the Commission done to develop policies that are more SME friendly? Well, in March 2020, we have issued the European SME strategy, which goes along with the industrial strategy for Europe. And the European SME strategy has three pillars. The first pillar is the digitalization and sustainability, where we will put the focus on capacity building, and where we have developed, in fact, several actions like the sustainability services under the Enterprise Europe Network, or under Digital Europe, there is the European Innovation Council, where in fact, companies will have access to advisors who can direct them to the right IT solution for their company. That's the digital innovation hubs. And also under Horizon Europe, you have the European Innovation Council, which is really dedicated to promote startups and scale up, helping them to put into the market an innovative product, first to help them finishing the development, and then with a function of accelerator, helping them to commercialize their products and to find investors. At the level of access to finance, in order to close the market gap in access to finance, we will have actions under the new program InvestEU, the SME window, that will promote some priorities like creating an SME IPO fund, which will help SMEs to enter the capital markets, or the Escalar venture capital fund, which is dedicated to scale-ups. And in order to reduce red tape and tap into the market, we will reduce burden and prompting payments by, in fact, developing the single digital gateway as a one-stop shop for SMEs to find information. We will develop also cross-border pilots, and the actions we will see today are a very good example of what we can do at the level of cross-border piloting, which means, in fact, we will favor the development of initiatives by 2 member states or regions to get together and study how they can improve their business environment by reducing regulatory burden. We will also monitor and enforce the late payment directive in order to facilitate that companies are paid faster. And last but not least, under the Digital Europe program, also we will develop the Startup Standard Nation, which is a project, in fact, where we will develop, we will give a sort of label to EU member states for their business environment and their facility to help startups to be created and to grow by studying several components, like, for example, the time and cost to create a company, or even the facility to which companies get licenses to exploit their products. Then I said, yes, the SME strategy has been developed and has been adopted in March 2020, just before the pandemic, which was maybe an unfortunate moment, but everything is unfortunate in this period. And what we notice in this period is that, in fact, SMEs have been hit hard by the COVID-19 crisis. According to preliminary estimates from the Commission SMEs Performance Review, we can see that the number of SMEs has to decline by 2.5% in 2020, that the loss of jobs in SMEs will be approximately of 2.4 million persons alone, and that the aggregated added value of EU SMEs is expected to drop by 6%. So in a nutshell, within a couple of months, the COVID pandemic has erased the gains of a decade-long SME recovery since the last financial crisis. Now, the Commission and the Member States have acted to, in fact, prevent the damage to be bigger by taking certain measures like moratorium on debt, on social security, on taxes, by installing temporary unemployment schemes, But these were remedy solutions in order to prevent that the crisis would be bigger. But now we come to a time of recovery. We have to reconstruct economy to start with a new basis. And there, I mean, the Commission has made an unprecedented effort since, in fact, we have announced a plan for economic recovery in the EU under the multi-annual financial framework. And we have developed a new instrument, the Next Generation EU. For the first time, the Commission will go to the financial markets to borrow in order to put in the hands of member states with sufficient funds to develop tools to recover and to help companies to build a new economy. So, one central motto of the multi-annual financial framework will be to base the investments on the dual transition and now even the triple transition. The first one being the digitalization. You know, digitalization more than a year ago was a need for companies. Now it's no more a need. We are all teleworking. Businesses doing more, being done by the, due to the circumstances more and more online. So digitalization is no more a need. It's an imperative. It's a necessary condition for companies to evolve and grow. So that's one of the first pillars of the plan. The second one being green transition. We all know the situation. There's no turning back. We have to act now, not in 10 years, and it's really a must in the MFF and the Next Generation EU. And it's at the same time also for companies an opportunity. That's also the goal of this plan, to create new conditions and to present opportunities for development to companies in needed transitions. And the third one is added to the twin transition, which was digital and green, which is the resilience. We have all noticed during the pandemic that in fact there were shortages in our value chains. We had shortages of products in the EU because we noticed that in fact they were produced abroad, and this provoked very unhappy situations where we were missing critical products and strategic products when we needed to face the crisis. So we need to reconstruct our industrial chain, and this is very central to the industrial strategy. And we have to invest in reinforcing the resilience of EU economy. Altogether, the multi-annual financial framework and the Next Generation EU will be 2 trillion euros budget, which is an unprecedented effort from the European Union to reconstruct the economy. This will help us to fuel several tools. And the first one I would mention is the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which will be made of 725 billion for investment in reform, including, and I would say even mainly, and principally in green and digital transitions. I would give you the example of Spain, which has presented the España Puede plan, which is a 72 billion plan for the next 3 years, where they will invest in digitalization of companies, in energy plans, in also in heavily in digitalization and in every sector of SME policy, and also in skills. And one of the features also of this Recovery and Resilience Facility is that it will be linked to the studies that the Commission does every year on the country specific recommendations that the Commission issues to the member states. So it will be monitored together with the EU and in line with the necessary economy needs of each member state and tailor-made to each member state. Also, it will fuel the regional funds, under which you know that Interreg and the 5 projects that are presented today are funded with 275 billion. But also it will fund Horizon Europe with 92 billion. That includes 10 billion for the European Innovation Council that is dedicated, I mentioned before, to really helping SMEs to innovate and put products in the market through the Pathfinder and the Accelerator to help them commercialize, marketize, and even find investors for their activity. It will fund also InvestEU with 9 billion, InvestEU, which will be the fund where all financial instruments of the European Union will be focused with, and there will be 4 windows, including one window exclusively dedicated to SMEs. So it will include loans, but also venture capital funds and also alternative ways of funding. And also not mentioned in my slide, but the Digital Europe program, where you will find the Digital Europe digital innovation hubs that will provide SMEs with practical advice on how to find the IT solution that they need. It will also fund the single market program, to which the program I manage, the COSME program will be a pillar with 4 billion. The COSME pillar will have a budget of 1 billion to fund inter alia the Enterprise Europe Network, which is a network of 600 organizations that provide advice to companies on access to markets, but also on innovation. And now the new development will be that we will also give business advisory services relating to green transition and also to the digital transition. And last but not least, in the COSME part of the single market program, we will also fund the joint cluster initiative that will, in fact, be active to build interlinkages between all the ecosystems in the EU to become more resilient. And also the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, which is a mentoring scheme helping people in the EU to have an entrepreneurial experience with a mentor, an experienced entrepreneur that will show him the keys of the business. So in conclusion, I would say, yes, SMEs are the fabric of the economy. They are central to the economy, to all our ecosystems. They will be central to economic recovery. We need SMEs to build resilience, to advance in digitalization and in the green transition. But SMEs have specific needs to be able to scale up and grow and bring a higher contribution to EU economy and society. And for that, we have developed the SME strategy, which is part of the more global industrial strategy. And it is a guidance for policy action. And you will see that the problems I evoked with the SME strategy are very much central to the 5 projects we will see later in the session. SMEs have been hit hard by the pandemic, but they can be the engine of recovery. And for that, we need to help them. And this is why the Commission also issues an unprecedented plan for recovery with the multi-annual financial framework and the Next Generation EU. So the 5 Interreg actions that you will see later today, they are a perfect example of EU can contribute to SME development with collaborative schemes, networking, and good practice sharing. And you will see that, in fact, they cover all ranges of SME issues that I presented today, and they're very much relevant. Thank you for listening, and have a good session.
Yes, thank you, Jose. Yeah, it was interesting that you reiterated how the Interreg projects that we are presenting today also are related to what you have presented. And so to our participants, if you are just joining us now, please don't hesitate to drop your questions in the chat, and then our speakers can directly answer them through the chat. And actually, Jose, we already have some questions for you, but and later on, if we have time, we can go into deeper conversations about the questions. For now, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Maripaz Lopez. Maripaz works in the EU Projects Department of Info, which is the regional development agency of Murcia in Spain. Info is the lead partner of the Interreg Europe project called Scale Up, which Maripaz will tell us more about. So Maripaz, the screen is yours.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay, just a second. Okay, I think that's it now.
Now we can see your screen.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, my name is Paz Lopez. I work for the European Projects Department at Instituto de Fomento, the development agency of the region of Murcia in Spain. And I'm here today to present you with this talk about Scale Up, an Interreg Europe project. I've been working in this project since the start as a communication officer. Okay, I will start. Okay, its main objective is to improve some policy instruments of the participant regions and support SMEs' capacity to grow in regional, national, and international markets. We, as the Region of Murcia Development Agency, are facing several challenges, such as the reinforcing of the business fabric, helping SMEs in the recovery from this pandemic, as well as assisting them to remain competitive. The small and medium companies are being supported in their boost and scale up in all kinds of perspectives. Scale Up works on the improvement of policy instruments, therefore on the improvement of European competitivity and on the acceleration of regional economic growth. We started with the partners' local situations SWOT analysis and then identified the best practices that can be transferred and adapted to other regions. So each partner created a stakeholders action group with main local actors that are actively involved in the whole interregional process. Scale Up is about creating business collaborative culture between science, technology, innovation, and industrial companies. It's about establishing regional smart specialization groups, such as partnerships, networks, clusters. Also, it's about using and adapting new technologies and facilitating access to finance tools. Okay, the core of the project, its partners. The UK with Nottingham, Germany with Northern Hesse, Poland with Lubelski, Lazio region in Italy, region of Attica in Greece, and Murcia region in Spain. But last but not least, we have our communication and advisory partner, EURADA, in Brussels, our hosts today. There's a budget of nearly 1,300,000 euros, a classification by Interreg Europe as SMEs competitiveness, and the timeline from August 2019 to July 2022. Right, like any other Interreg Europe project, the actions are identification of scaling up practices, creation of regional stakeholders action groups, composed normally from members of the local government, such as local development agencies, also the business sector, i.e. confederations or associations of companies, and academia, such as universities. Organization of interregional policy learning events and peer reviews to discuss the best practices of each region, and developing action plans. This project is about finding the BPs, best practices or BPs, that create common objective synergies that will contribute to the reinforcing of SMEs by helping them to innovate, scale up, and create more employment. We have classified them in 6 different topics. Financial. We have 4, one from Greece, one from Italy, another one from Germany, and the Spanish one. You can click on any of these links. I'm sure the organization is going to send you this presentation at your request. Anyway, to not extend myself too much, I'll just mention an example of the last one, of the subsidies from region of Murcia. which is about subsidies linked to monetary contributions to the share capital of private investors. It contemplates non-refundable subsidies of up to a maximum of 20,000 euros. Innovation. One from Hesse, another one from Lazio, one from Nottingham, and one from Murcia. The objective of MOVIL from Northern Hesse, for example, is to identify cooperative research and development projects through targeted networkings between companies and the university to increase R&D activities. This particular one is aimed at SMEs in the field of mobility. In the accelerator category, again, two from Nottingham, one from Attica, and another one from Lubelski. As an example, I'll just mention the Upscaler, which helps high growth companies to scale up their businesses through workshops, a peer-to-peer network, and grants for coaching and graduate placements, whether they are existing or potential scale-ups, or ambitious micro firms with tangible evidence of scalability. Well, that was a mouthful. In the ecosystem topic, we have another three from Lubelski, Hesse, and Attica. There are three services to assist companies provided by three different regions and bodies. The first one concentrates in foreign investing in Lubelski and in the supporting of his companies. The second one is an innovation consultancy from the Chambers of Commerce in Hesse. And the third is a center in Attica that specializes in supporting a structure for research and innovation. Okay, in the marketing topic, there are two. The project regional brand, Lubelski, is to promote products and services from the region by granting them a registered trademark, which is a symbol of quality and innovation. As an example of incubators, we have the ESA big program from Lazio, Innova, that aims to spread the use of space-developed technology ideas and their application for business. In particular, some space technologies spin-offs have resulted in innovative applications and smart space solutions in Earth's citizens. Right, to wrap up, 6 categories of best practices: financial, innovation, acceleration, ecosystem, marketing, and incubator. Online study visits. So we asked ourselves a question. How can we evaluate the learning potential and a good practice transfer if we cannot conduct a physical study visit to the imported region? And here we are proud to announce that the Scale Up project has been put as a good practice example by Interreg Europe for the method to replace the usual face-to-face with virtual visits, regrettably a necessity imposed by COVID-19, and the quick reaction and adaptation of the project to the circumstances. It's been quite a challenge, I can tell you. As in any other Interreg Europe project, the steps are compilation of BP's further information, analysis, clarifications, the online study visit itself, and the SWOT and final revision. After the study visits, we arrive to the online peer reviews. BPs have to be peer reviewed from a perspective of transfer and adaptation. How was it done? The possible importers of a VP previously sent their queries to the exporter to clarify certain aspects. So the exporter is then prepared for the online meeting, where one or more partners can consult their doubts and can get answers, hints, solutions, etc. After this, the importer is in a much better position to select the BPs they want. Right. This is just where we are at in this project, in action plans. In a good action plan, you have to demonstrate the link with the interregional learning outputs. You have to select the BPs to be transferred into your regional ecosystem. You have to design the actions, the players involved, set up the time frame, and calculate the costs and funding sources. But most important, you have to get a deep involvement of your regional stakeholders. Okay, I don't want to finish without showing you some of the pictures that we've had in the different meetings we've had in the past. For example, the kickoff meeting in Murcia here, or the study visit face-to-face in Lubelski, which was the only one that wasn't online. And of the different groups, the different teams of the 7 partners working in Scale Up. That's it now. I hope we gave you a clear idea what this project is about, but nonetheless, you have my details here, and also the social media and websites for the project. Okay, if you have any inquiries or doubts, please don't hesitate to contact me. Muchas gracias for your attention. Bye now.
Thank you, Maripaz. So as she mentioned, URADA is also part of the Scale Up project, where we work as the advisory and communications partner. I think it's interesting to note that the Scale Up project is now through with our learning phase. So with the action plans, we are down to the nitty-gritty and really putting everything that we have learned into action. So I see that we have a lot of questions already. So what we are going to do is, after our next speaker, we're going to have a first round of Q&A. So please, if you have any questions for our first 3 speakers, just drop them in the chat and we will get to them as soon as the next speaker finishes. Speaking of which, I would like to introduce Mr. Jose Carlos Garcia. Jose Carlos is a professor at the Technical University of Cartagena, and he also works at the Business Innovation Center in Cartagena in Spain as a project coordinator in business coordination. So BIC, or Business Innovation Center Cartagena, is an incubator and accelerator for startups and innovative companies. Today, Jose Carlos will tell us more about the project that bolsters small and medium companies. So Jose Carlos, the screen is yours. If you could unmute yourself. We can see your screen, but we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Ivana,
now,
do you listen me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this important event, so beneficial for the region of Murcia. My name is Jose Carlos Garcia. I am the project coordinator in Big Cartagena. And before I start to explain the foundation project, let me introduce my innovation center. Okay. The next, one moment, please. Here. Okay. The slide don't paste. One moment. Here. Okay. Big Cartagena is a non-profit association established in 1992. It's an initiative of the Regional Development Agency of Murcia. In this board participate different institutions and agencies of Cartagena, like financial institutions, public and private companies. Okay. And Big Cartagena belongs to the National Association of the European Centers of Hispanic Companies and Innovation. And the next slide, you can see the main objective, the main activity in Big Cartagena. Big Cartagena is a tool for support a new innovative business on has promoted the creation and of companies and promoted innovation with its territorial scope. We are working to support in startups, in incubators, and in different stakeholders in on board in the Big Cartagena is local authorities, higher education institutes, private enterprise, and financial institutions. And secondly, I'm going to explain the foundation project. Foundation project is a cooperation project, Interreg Europe. Um, in this project is the main activity is to provide a framework and roadmap for regions facing industrial closures, job losses, and to develop economic resilience through collaboration is the main activity. Um, this project has a duration for 4 years active cooperation in two phases, the activity in phase 1 and phase 2. And this project has 9 partners from 9 countries, okay? Um, we are working in 9 policy instruments to be addressed. And in this project, improve the active involvement of managing authorities in each region and intense collaboration. This project is very important for involve the key role for local stakeholders and improve the policy instruments in the form of action plans. Is normally in the second phases. Right. The partners in this project is the lead partner is Core Institute of Technology from Ireland, and another partner is Oldham Council from United Kingdom. Another is University of Oulu from Finland. Lithuanian Innovation Center from Lithuania. RESA Regional Development Agency from Poland. Panon Business Network Association from Hungary. Municipality of Reggio Emilia from Italy. Cartagena from Spain. And Business Upper Austria from Austria. Okay. And in the next slide, you can see it, the technical implementation. Normally, the different activities is divided in two phases. In phase 1, August 2018 to July 2022. And in these phases, we are working in different activities, normally about a chain of experience, workshop, study visits, seminars, regional stakeholder group, meeting and active involvement, ecosystem case study, ecosystem analysis, and it's very important the round table with entrepreneurial and small and medium companies, and at final action plans. In this project, it's very important too the activities, the communication activities, because the newsletter and social media promotion the different activities of the project. And every 6 months, final report to project management. And the next phase, phases 2, from August 2022 to July 2023, we will have to develop a chain experience about the implementation and monitoring and evaluation of the action plans. And then the finish, we will have to work final dissemination event and yearly to do meeting and report of cost for to project management. The project activities, the more important project activities, the main idea is develop of a framework and roadmap to build regional resilience to industrial structural change. It's very interesting for the actually for national, regional legislation and programs. And another activity is to identify the best practice in industry resilience and to develop or to analyze the regional ecosystem and successful case of large firm who overcome a crisis, and to analyze of the factors the block and highlight small and medium company for incorporation growth in the aftermath of a regional shock. Another activity is fostering interregional learning and capacity building through workshop, study visits. Study visits is a problem today for COVID-19, and policy learning events. This project is very interesting for promoting public dialogue and consultation process to ensure the successful implementation of regional action plans. And this project increasing awareness, promoting and disseminating the project results. For the objectives, the overall or the main objective of the project is to develop framework and roadmap to build regional resilience to industrial structural change. But this overall objective is divided in three operational objectives. The objective one is to enhance innovation ecosystem through understanding the existing challenge and gaps for small and medium companies, birth, development, and growth. And the objective two is important to generate a solid interaction between key stakeholders from the quadruple helix to orchestrate sustainable small and medium companies in growth or in competitiveness. And objective three, to develop the effective policies to build regional resilience to industrial structural change. This objective is at the final of the project in these cases. In this slide, you can see the three objectives, similar before a slide, but you can see the activities that compose its objective, okay? The objective one, the main activities, the study ecosystem case study, 9, one case study for partner in the project. Normally it is the case studies it's for of or large firm exist closer in each region for participating in foundation. And another activity is the peer review document, the role private and public stakeholders play in the local ecosystem. This activity is very interesting because the experience in each region of the project is a good experience. The objective two is divided in different activities too. The workshop, this project has 4 workshops. In this workshop to present the best practice and to identify the barriers and propose solutions and to enhance the role of 4 helix actors to support small and medium companies. And this objective has 9 visits study. Today is possible. I think we have developed 3 visits study, and to illustrate business the best practice and initiatives. And another activity that is very interesting is the meeting stakeholders. It's participant in the project have the own stakeholder meeting, and it's very interesting to arise the engagement and to share the lesson learning. Okay, normally it's 2 per year per partner. And then a final activity in this objective will have we'll have to work in 4 seminars to open the debate to a wider audiences. This slide is similar the before, and the most important is explain the topics in workshops and seminars. The topics in workshop 1 is the economic regional resilience and regional adaptation. This workshop was in United Kingdom. The workshop 2, academic and economic resilience, is different view. The before workshop 1, is what role do academics play. Is a different view in for work the resilience economic. And the workshop 3 is the policy support for industrial resilience from Poland. The workshop 4 is the paper, the role of the individual in economic resilience. It's in Italy. And the seminars, it's 4 seminars too. The seminars, the first topic is regional resilience in Europe. Normally the role of industry structural in determining resilience. And this the seminars 2 is the industry cluster, is the view the clusters. This topic is very interesting for actually. Normally is according to Digital Innovation Hub, is a trend very important today. And the seminars 3 is the planning for structural change, and small and medium company analyze the case from Finland, services cluster. And the seminars 4, the final activity, it's what builds and resilient regions and the policies and strategies. Okay.
You only have 1 minute left.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I finished my presentation. Thank you for listening, and thank you. It's a pleasure for answer the questions, Ivana.
Thank you, Jose Carlos. So could I please have the first 3 speakers on screen, Maripaz and Jose? And we will have the first round of Q&A for you. Okay. So our first question is for Mr. Jose Blanques. This is from Rafael Atas. How do you see the capacity of SMEs in the EU to absorb such a 1.2 trillion mana in the current economic desert?
Okay, thank you, Rafa, for the question. Well, first of all, it's not 1.2 trillion, it's 2 trillion. So it's even bigger. First of all, the 2 trillion are not destinated directly to SMEs, not all the 2 trillion. That's the first thing. There's also a budget for capacity building of public authorities, for support organizations, for citizens. Because, for example, the 2 trillion, you have the Erasmus Plus for the mobility of students and teachers. So it's the whole the entire EU society that is concerned by the 2 trillion. In my presentation, I just wanted to put the focus on the instruments that are directed or have a big hook on SMEs. Then how will it arrive to SMEs? Well, one of the things is through intermediaries anyway. But the first way, if you noticed in my presentation, um, for example, the Recovery and Resilience Facility is to be implemented by member states. So this is more local. SMEs don't have to come to Brussels to get the funds. It will be implemented mainly by member states because 700 billion of the 2 trillion will be implemented by member states together with the regions. Then you have the 300 billion of the regional funds that and also the ESF, which is again an additional big bunch of that budget, will be implemented by region. And then also, well, I would say through actions like this one, by explaining to SMEs where they have to, which door they have to knock on, and which button to press to find how the things will be distributed. An example, the InvestEU fund. In fact, with our programs, we also invest lots of budgets to construct networks. There is the Enterprise Europe Network under my program, the COSME, that gives business support advice to companies. And one of the advices they give is precisely where to get the funds or where to get the support, because it's not only money that will reach the companies, it's also support, because the Enterprise Europe Network doesn't give money to SMEs. It gives business support advice on how to do business in another EU country or in Mexico or in the US or in Japan. So there's a wide array of means in which these 2 trillion will reach SMEs and other components of the EU society through intermediaries, through regional authorities, local authorities, member states, and not through the Berlaymont. No, that doesn't work in real life.
So I think you have also answered the next question, which was when and how the new funds will be available. Is there a roadmap? As you mentioned,
of course, there's not one roadmap. There's plenty of roadmaps. The first roadmap, well, the first milestone is the ratification by member states of the multi-annual financial framework overall agreement and the next generation EU overall agreement. You probably know that this was a bit delayed because of some member states blocking the decision because of certain issues that I will not go back on that. So it was adopted quite late. And obviously this gave delays in the adoption of all the single programs of InvestEU, of the single market program, of Horizon. So we are all delayed. Now, all the programs are either in the pre-state of ratification, pending the overall ratification by member states. It's between the Council and the Parliament. Political agreement has been reached on all the programs between the Council and the Parliament. It's really at the level of lawyer linguist revision. The only one I know precisely is mine. It's the single market program. That one, in fact, it's precisely now at the lawyer linguist revision, which means that once they finish their job in March, it goes for ratification to the Parliament and the Council, and normally it should be adopted in May. And April, May, we would have the regulation on the single market program adopted. Will we start working from there? No, we cannot, because normally we should be implementing already since January, and we will be there in May. So we will suffer a delay of 6 months in almost all EU programs, but you know all the circumstances why we are late. The pandemic obviously is the main reason, because believe it or not, it has delayed everything. So we are working on all our work programs. The work program for the SMP, for the SME component of the SMP is ready. It's in internal discussion at the level of the Commission. We will consult with the member states in the coming weeks. And once the regulation is adopted, we could start implementing. And at our level, the first call for proposals we will publish will be the Enterprise Europe Network. So I know from other colleagues from other DGs that, for example, some projects, some programs are pretty much advanced and more advanced than others. Horizon, I think they are quite much advanced, but as us, they depend on the overall ratification by each member states on the overall MFF.
Okay, thank you, Jose.
So let's count that implementation by all programs will be around April, May.
Okay, so we will
more likely first calls to be published around June, something like that.
Okay, so everybody mark your calendars for June. But speaking
and if you allow me just one thing, the recovery and resilience facility, well, it is much more complex because it involves negotiations between several services of the Commission, and as I mentioned, it's monitored by the Commission with European semester and the country-specific recommendations, and the negotiations are just ongoing, which means it's pretty much advanced also. So if you look at the Spanish government page, the plan is there. España puede, the plan is there, but the details have to be fine-tuned with the Commission.
All right. Thank you, Jose. Speaking of delays, this question is for Jose Carlos and Maripaz. Have your projects encountered any delays because of the pandemic?
Okay. Well, in our case, in Scale Up, not really. We had one study visit in Lublin, which was face-to-face, and one Interreg learning event there. We couldn't do any more. We had to stop there. But then we created this methodology to do these online study visits. What we did was to, because we had to stop all the actual trips. So what we did was to make videos of the best practices with companies and institutions. And so we used some of this to present them to present all the partners and all the stakeholders with them, so they could see what the best practice was about. Also, we did the same with the peer reviews. We prepared them ahead, and so we, like I said before, previously we sent the questions to the possible exporter of the BPs. So we prepared a meeting with the importer and the exporters, and we could clarify all the different aspects that they couldn't understand to start with. That way they could choose the best practices they could work with.
And Jose Carlos, what about in Foundation?
It's similar. It's similar by Maripaz because the project has changed the visit study for a meeting online. Is normally is possible according to the COVID-19 is possible the visit study will have in the second part of the project in phase 2. The work is similar. The meeting online is very effective. In the meeting, all countries are in similar situation, teleworking, and in these cases, the project go on very good for this situation.
Okay, so thank you very much to our first 3 speakers. If there are any more questions for them, please write them in the chat, and then at the end of the session, we can get back to them later on. So our next round of speakers will talk more about their experiences in working to support the growth and scale up of SMEs. First up, we have Ms. Sandra Evans from the University of Tübingen. The University of Tübingen is the lead partner of the Interreg Europe project called Axel. So Sandra, what is Axel and how do you expand SME competencies? The screen is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation to present the Axel project at this esteemed event, and I am honored to be part of this panel. My name is Sandra Evans, as Ivana just said, and I'm from the University of Tübingen, which is in the state of Baden-Württemberg in southern Germany. And there I am part of the Lebensphasenhaus team, which is a space for research, a space for demonstration, and a space for knowledge transfer on the topic of independent living and aging in place. So in essence, it's an innovation infrastructure to create social and technological solutions together with a variety of quadruple helix stakeholders. And as such, it forms the base of a living lab or living lab activities. But before I get into the Excel project, I wanted to focus on the challenges because challenges, problems, gaps are important drivers for innovation. And too often, there is a technology push rather than a pull from actual demand. And therefore, we want to make the case for a problem-oriented culture, for demand-driven innovation and outcome or impact-based approaches, which in essence, helps to create relevant and sustainable solutions. So what are the challenges that Axel is working towards? I think, as you can see in the graphic, we are concerned with the healthcare sector, and across Europe, the healthcare sector is under great pressure, facing similar issues such as aging populations, shortage of healthcare workers, and adequately integrating social and healthcare provision. And while these issues prevailed already before the COVID-19 crisis, this pandemic has certainly magnified the issues and pointed to where the shortcomings are. However, we're also seeing, I think, that this crisis can be a driver for innovation, and specifically in the healthcare sector, the Corona crisis has done its part to boost digitalization. So with or without the pandemic, megatrends like aging populations and digitalization in the healthcare sector, because the healthcare sector as such is a complex ecosystem with specific regulations and certification requirements. So the healthcare sectors on the one hand requires, but also on the other enables new forms of cooperation and collaboration. And so these trends indeed expedite the paradigm shift, or the necessary paradigm shift from a closed to a more open innovation process. But before we go on, I wanted to get some inspiration from Madeleine Albright, the former State Secretary of the US under President Clinton, who in 2017 at the Disinfo Week that was hosted by the Atlantic Council called for 21st century solutions to 21st century problems. I think that's an important, because it's a reminder maybe, or call, because I think specifically also in the healthcare, we are often, have 21st century problems, try to solve them with a 20th century mentality, and sometimes even with 19th century tools, let's say, just to, put it poignantly. But anyway, to get back to the challenges, merging these two mega trends, digitalization and aging populations, in smart ways can bring about great opportunities. And it seems as though we are at a breaking point with or through the COVID pandemic. I think one great and famous example is the vaccination challenge, right? So governments and private companies come together still to produce and certify vaccines in record time. And so it would be just also a great opportunity or a perfect moment to rethink how public and private work together, building functional and symbiotic partnerships with a focus on impact and on smart and sustainable growth. And not wanting to sound too pathetic, but it is, also a wonderful opportunity to reset the system and switch the focus from shareholders towards stakeholders, as Mariana Mazzucato, the famous economist, also calls for. And so, more than in other industries in the healthcare sector, it is important to create solutions for, but also with the actual end users to solve these real life challenges. And this is where open innovation, living labs, and Accel comes in. So Accel stands for Accelerating SME Innovative Capacities with the Living Lab approach. And certainly you've probably heard of a Living Lab, so the Living Lab approach, but if you ask 5 people what Living Labs are, surely you'll get 5 totally different answers. And for that reason, for our project activities, we use the European Network of Living Labs definition, which defines Living Labs as user-centered, open innovation ecosystems that are based on a systemic user co-creation approach, where research and innovation processes are integrated in real life communities and settings. So, it's kind of a mouthful, but I think there are just those, very important aspects that make up, this approach and provide also a wonderful framework for SMEs to work with and work in. And if you want to know more about the benefits and the workings of the Living Lab, next week we will be publishing our podcast, the Excelcast, on our website. And one of the episodes, we speak with our associated partner, Lika Lab, in Flanders, to learn about their activities, what they do, and how they engage the stakeholders. So, so much for that. So Axel wants to, so those are the objectives. What we want to do is to sensitize all parties to the benefits of the Living Lab approach, but specifically, political decision makers and SMEs. What we also want to do is to identify good practices in our partner regions for improving the local regional development policies. And also we want to, of course, increase the innovation capacities and thus innovation performance. And last but not least, actively promote trans-regional collaboration and learning. Just quick, our partners, as Ivana said, University of Tübingen, we are the lead partner, and we work together with the Agency for Innovation and Entrepreneurship in Flanders, with the Timish County Council in Romania, with the region of North Denmark. Then there's the Central European Initiative from Friuli Venezia Giulia in Italy, as well as the Scottish government with NHS and the Technology Park in Ljubljana, Slovenia. As I said, our associated partner or advisory partner is Lika Lab, Living in Care Lab in Flanders. Right. So, our contribution would be to identify optimal framework conditions for SMEs in order to increase their overall drive and innovative capacities towards social and technical innovation in the healthcare sectors. And it has been shown, and I think also confirmed by Jose Blanques, that SMEs profit from access to interprofessional networks, from access to end users and spaces of experimentation. Their time to market is an inherent risk, really, can also be reduced when they collaborate not only with stakeholders in their respective or local ecosystems, but also with neighboring regions and countries to transfer knowledge and technology related to the challenges that they aim to improve. Also, this access to other markets really also helps in scaling and internationalization through the diversification. So this is one way that we would like to claim that we want to improve the framework conditions for SMEs. And another one is with our let's say, landscaping tool that we used in the Axel project, because this not only helps to improve the framework conditions by informing about them, but also reshaping maybe the private and public partnership. So this is the landscaping tool, like I said, we use to also match our partners for the twinning activities. And this is it's based on the Scirocco maturity model, which came from the B3 Action Group on Integrated Care of the European Innovation Partnership on Active and Healthy Aging, or the EIP AHA. And it was first developed well, as a concept of the B3 maturity model. So this was brought in by our Scottish partners, and it's an adapted version now what we use, based or focusing on the demand-driven innovation. And this participatory self-assessment tool helps stakeholders to understand, one, the local context and conditions for delivering demand-driven innovation in health and social care, and including its strengths and its weaknesses. And so, as I said, based on these strengths and weaknesses that each region, partner region in the Excel project conducted, based on these strengths and weaknesses, we matched our regions for twinning activities. And so another understanding that this tool provides for stakeholders is also on the readiness level of a regional ecosystem to adopt and scale up social and technological innovation. And so, how this works, stakeholders from the quadruple helix, from policy, commerce, research, and the overall public sector, independently fill out this online survey in these 12 dimensions that you see here, and they rate from a 0 to 5 from their perspective, where they think the regional or local ecosystem is at, and so each stakeholder fills that in independently, and then everybody comes together for a consensus workshop where you engage in this dialogue to find out about where you are, and try to maybe also understand the perspective where, for instance, maybe a managing authority thinks that their governance and their programs or whatever are just stellar. For SME support, an SME might have another opinion on that. So this is an opportunity to come together and talk why one thinks one way and the other might not totally agree with that. So this tool is also a wonderful way to structure that multi-stakeholder dialogue that I think is also just so necessary. And I think the COVID situation has also kind of pointed to that necessity, of getting people and getting stakeholders to talk to each other. I'd probably also say it's a form of resilience, really, to have these types of structures. Essentially, at the end, this is an invitation to discover the added value of the Living Lab approach through the Excel project, and invitation to engage in open innovation ecosystems, and also, of course, promote European cooperation and cohesion. Right, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. So now joining us from Kent County Council, which is the provincial authority of Kent, is Mr. Steve Samson. Steve works as a trade development manager at the Kent County Council, which is also the lead partner of the Interreg project SIE. Steve, the screen is yours.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's great to hear from some of the other Interreg Europe projects that have been doing similar things on related topics, and yeah, really great to be with you this morning. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the SIE project. Hopefully you can all see my screen. I can't see anyone anymore, just my screen. So please shout if that's not the case. But yeah, our project, I guess we're a little bit further along the road than some of the others we've heard from this morning, in that we're pretty much finishing off. We've been running the project for the last 5 years, and I guess COVID was a late challenge to the project. One of the earlier ones we had, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention the word Brexit, but the vote and the impact of that on SME internationalization was something we tackled. So I guess we were already used to working with companies in difficult circumstances. Yeah, so as Ivana said, I work at Kent County Council in the UK. We're the closest part of England to mainland Europe, and we've got a long history of cooperation with our European colleagues and neighbours and friends, and have delivered a number of projects through Interreg to help businesses with innovation and with internationalisation. Yeah, so the SIE project, I'll give you a quick overview really, and I'd like to just explain perhaps some of the challenges we've faced or we feel that our businesses are facing in our different regions due to the impacts of coronavirus. So yeah, so the SIE project, we've as I said, we're coming to an end after 5 years of activity. Kent County Council in the UK has been the lead partner, and the aim of the project really was around looking at programs and activities in different European regions that are designed to help SMEs with internationalization, and that's, I guess, that's exporting within the EU, but also further afield as well. We're working with 7 different European regions. So Kent is the lead partner in the UK. We've got Torun Development Agency in Poland, N-Bank, which is a public sector bank that helps SMEs with all kinds of financial support and instruments in the Lower Saxony region of Germany. We have the Usti region in the Czech Republic, Molise in Italy, Cantabria in northern Spain, and then the Chambre Commerce Internationale for Nouvelle-Aquitaine in France. And of course, each of those partners is supported by a group of local stakeholders, of business support organizations and other colleagues who have an interest in making sure that the right support is there for their SMEs to help with international trade. So why international trade? Well, you know, when we developed the project several years ago, we knew that international trade is a key tool, and we've heard that this morning, particularly during the first intervention, that it helps SMEs to become more innovative, more productive, helps them to find new markets, new customers, new sales. Internationalization can also help spread risk, where you may have seasonal limits on your product. If you're selling internationally, you can ride out seasonality. You can also deal with market peaks and troughs in different markets, and of course, it can help extend the shelf life of products and services that may only have a limited shelf life domestically. But of course, internationalization is complicated, and there are many risks and regulations to deal with, which is why we developed the SCI project to really look at this topic. So as you've heard already from some of the other Interreg Europe projects this morning, there's I guess a similar pattern of activities that all projects look at. So we started SCI with some regional studies, which gave us an opportunity to review some of the barriers to exporting and some of the challenges faced by SMEs in each of the regions. And then we were able to compare that and of course found that many of the challenges faced are very common across the EU. And in particular, there was a lack of capacity within small businesses to focus on international activities, and a lack of contacts internationally. So there were 2 things that we looked at throughout the project. We then had a series of study visits, and we were actually able to visit our partner regions. If anyone remembers what that was like, that was really good, and we learned through that we identified some great case studies about different support programs to help businesses with international trade, and you can see details of those. You've got some videos on the SCI website, and the address will come up at the end of on my final slide. And then we kind of looked at how to improve and influence the policies in each region. So we had some workshops where we kind of discussed what we'd seen in our different partner regions and started to make changes and plans to improve things across the partnership. And of course, that led to some regional action plans, which gave us opportunities to put new support programs in place to tackle some of the barriers that we'd found throughout the rest of the project. And I guess, yeah, in terms of the COVID, as has already been mentioned this morning several times, it has had a massive impact on everything really. And on the SCI project in particular, we were well into our second phase of activity. So just a few examples of how the pandemic has made us as a project change, but also helped us to evolve, I guess, or forced us to evolve the support that there's there for businesses. So in Kent, we were putting in place something called the Export Pathway, which was a program to bring together all the different support services in our region to help SMEs, and we were inspired very much by the system in place in our French partner region of Nouvelle-Aquitaine, where lots of different organisations are involved in helping companies the different phases of internationalization, through from market selection to actually market visits, trade missions, and all kinds of things. And that we were, as part of that activity, we were engaging with new companies to try and support them. But of course, due to COVID, we really had to stop contacting companies, because we found that their priorities were shifting very much from being interested in exporting to simply surviving, for a few months. We had to cancel a pilot on export clusters, because that involved groups of people from businesses meeting together and traveling internationally, and of course that was no longer possible. But what we did with the funding we had planned for that was actually to test an export manager scheme, which is something that we'd seen had worked well in Cantabria in northern Spain. And we were able to give vouchers to some companies to try and tackle some of the trade issues they were facing, and they were able to use those vouchers to help with getting into new markets, with all kinds of things that were barriers due to COVID. And then in Torun in Poland, they were well on the way to putting in place a one-stop shop approach for export support services. But of course, COVID hit, and a lot of the organizations that were involved in internationalization really had to focus very much on immediate emergency response to helping businesses with immediate financial issues. But they were able to continue with some survey work that they'd done thanks to the SCI project, by gathering intelligence from different companies, and to really gauge what the impacts were of COVID on international trade. And finally, in Lower Saxony, we had a scheme that our German partners were borrowing from our Italian partners, which was around sending students on an international placement within a business to gain international business skills, and then come back and bring that into a company in the region. But of course, travel, etc., not being possible, that was something that sadly couldn't take place. So I think, I guess everyone on the call today has had to deal with similar impacts within their day jobs. And I think, just a few thoughts really on what the pandemic has done for internationalization with SMEs. I think we found that during 2020, internationalization has become a much lower priority for SMEs, because they've really had to focus on survival. Although of course we recognise that there is an importance to internationalization that will help with longer term growth and stability. So it's something we need to continue to support SMEs and encourage them with. And I think there's been a shift in market focus. We found that some markets were closed down, early due to the pandemic, whereas others, I guess, have been opening up. So I think companies are having to think about where they're targeting their international activity. And of course, as has already been mentioned this morning, there's a massive shift now to online activity, particularly for business support around internationalization. So all the training, the one-to-one advice, the thematic events has moved to online, and in a way, I guess that's made it easier for some SMEs, because taking time out to do training has always been a problem. But I think there's a lot of information now available online to help companies with international trade. And of course, things like trade missions and trade fairs have also been moving slowly online. So we've seen a real change there with SMEs. And I think that's something that the services and the support providers are having to adapt to as well. And I guess just some thoughts really on what's next for internationalization. So I think, in the short term, exporting may still not be a priority for companies, because they perceive it to be very risky. And as we've said already, they're very much focusing on survival at the moment. Also, there's the digital skills gap, and we found, I think, as Jose said very early on today, it's an imperative. It's absolutely essential that SMEs now have those digital skills, and they can make use of those digital skills to get into international markets. So that's something, I guess it's a new approach to internationalization, which takes out some of the barriers. High costs have been quoted by companies before in terms of the cost of travel, the cost of time out of the office, whereas actually now in this more digital world, I think that we could see a trend where it's a lot easier for companies to make new contacts in market, so that they can, through digital means. And of course, yeah, I think we're gonna. I think there's probably been a shift now in terms of support interventions for SMEs, where many of those support mechanisms will remain online or be available online, in some kind of hybrid sense as well. I think also that companies will need to really be flexible with their internationalization strategies. I think we're seeing, there's a lot of challenges, in different markets due to the pandemic. So I think companies will need to be very agile about where they're targeting their activities. And of course, it's not all bad news. I think there are some very significant opportunities coming up for health and life science companies in particular. And I guess perhaps reduced demand on the other hand for some other products where they might find that domestic demand is sufficient, and international demand has dropped as a result of COVID. Yeah, and I think just finally really to talk about the need for good in-market contacts and things. Our Interreg Europe projects have shown that there's such a value in sharing good practice, in working together, in order to be able to help businesses in our different regions. So just having someone, particularly in market, who is able to explain what the situation is, what the opportunities are, is something that's so valuable and should be, I think, prioritized going forward. So I think that was pretty much it for me. My contact details are there, and of course, as I said, we're at the end of our project, so there are some good kind of case study videos and results videos that can be viewed on the SCI website. So and I couldn't see any questions for me, particularly in the chat, but yeah, I think that's all from me for now. So Ivana, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Steve. We realize that we are going a bit over time, but if you could all please stay with us until the end, because last but not the least, we have Mr. Lorenzo Sabatini from ASEV. ASEV is in the Tuscany region of Italy, and they are the lead coordinator of the Interreg project called 4.0 Ready. So Lorenzo, please tell us more about this project. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Ivana. Yes, I'm Lorenzo Sabatini. I work for a development and training agency in Tuscany. I'm the coordinator of the 4.0 Ready project, strengthening SME capacity in engaging with Industry 4.0. So we talk about knowledge, we talk about education and training on entrepreneurs, workers, and also young students upcoming to the job. The first couple of slides maybe are unuseful due to the nature of this meeting, just to introduce the Interreg Europe framework, a program to support the improvement of the national and regional policies by the exchange, by the interregional cooperation between regions on common problems. And also in our case, we submitted our application on the access to SME competitiveness. The key point of our project is the awareness that at the beginning of the new digital revolution, for sure in Tuscany, my region, we did an error. We immediately readdress our policy instrument in order to support small and medium enterprise in the research, innovation, and also for the purchasing of new equipment, hardware and software. But we forgot, or at least we delayed the human factor, the relevance of the training, of the knowledge of the entrepreneur itself. And we lack some time in the restart of the competitiveness of several small and medium enterprises. This is the context on which is placed 4.0 Ready. Industry 4.0 is the new digital industrial revolution and require a sort of paradigm change in all the production sector. In this context, the European region has a key role to play, but require a synergistic approach. And particularly, this is a problem very felt, for instance, in my country, it's important that funding programs be updated and synchronized among them in order to be really effective, particularly talking about Europe and region, the structural fund for social and regional development. At the top, there are the small and medium enterprise, the backbone of the European economy, which need a cultural and behavioral skill change, as well as the technical one for facing with the new digital revolution. This is our partnership, a very good one. We are 8 partners coming from 7 European region, different country, and we have on board all the necessary managing authorities so to can quickly shift from the exchange, from the practice to the improvement of the local policies. We have on board region of Helsinki, Wallonia, Silesia, the government of Navarra, the region of Tuscany for sure, Bucharest, Ilfov, and also a managing authority for a European Social Fund from Lithuania. This was the methodology we planned for our project during the phase 1. The project is structured on 3 steps. The first step concerning the awareness, the understand of the SME needs in all the region, methodology of analysis and the result achieved. The second step concerns the analysis and the exchange about different national and regional strategies adopted for facing with the digital revolution. And in the first step, during the third phase, we had to deal with the action plan development. So in order to list the activities to put in place in order to improve our policy instrument, but we were able to follow this scheme only for 7 months. Then the health emergency occurred and required to restart again. So no more physical study visit, no more physical interregional workshop, also with other network as we plan, and both at the regional and interregional level, but we have to restart with a new course done with characterized by very frequent web exchange in order to follow our methodology, but also in order to focus on specific problem we have to solve. So study visit become virtual visit, seminar become webinar, and so on. In this slide, I summarize the hits of the exchange we did, particularly in this last 8 months. We start from an exchange on about the policy, the strategy we have in our region, and about the methodology to analyze the needs of the SME facing with the digital revolution. And we talk also a lot about the different experience we have in our country concerning digital innovation hub. The race to develop such hub created a very different experience. For example, in Tuscany, we have a digital innovation hub fully dedicated to the governance of the regional strategies for industrial modernization. So something of very different from the normal scheme of a digital innovation hub, but very quickly we identified the topic on which we would want to have a bilateral or multilateral exchange, the specific topic on which we would want to improve our policy instrument. We talk about the need to identify clearly the new digital skill we have to introduce in our entrepreneurial system for supporting them. We talk about the training center and their capacity to effectively open own laboratories to the small and medium enterprise and the world of the training system, high technical institutes, training agency, and the same enterprises, but mainly actually we are focusing on two topics. Itinerarios 4.0, several partners had experience or want to improve on policy scheme in order to support directly the single small and medium enterprise for a digital assessment of all of own business model, and in order to get supporting the creation of a sort of digital roadmap on which to invest in order to shift to the new digital business models. And we talk a lot also about demonstrator 4.0, so open territorial laboratories fully or mainly devoted to the training of high school of students or workers of the same enterprises. We have experience in Wallonia and in Silesia, and this is just a case on which Just Tuscany wished to invest for the new programming period, starting obviously as we had to do from this running period. In my last slide, I will want to anticipate some hits about the policy improvement we think to apply for in Tuscany and in Lithuania, another our partners. We are just in these weeks starting to draft our action plan. In the case of Tuscany, we will have two main actions. The first addressed to the problem of the training of trainers on the new digital skill arising. We exchange some practice. We highlight during our activities some practice coming from Spain, for example, with the Technica Center, and from Wallonia in this sense. And we want to invest in strengthening the regional 4.0 laboratories, particularly in Tuscany. We have a specific body called ITS Foundation dedicated to the provision of high technical courses to enterprises and higher technical institutes. And we want to invest in supporting them in purchasing, obviously, new hardware and software, but mainly be able to really provide open course to the entrepreneurial sectors. And we are working just in this period, launching two specific calls on such topics, also in order to foster synergies between the ESF and ERDF scheme, because particularly in our region, we have two separate managing authorities and not always the resources are optimized for achieving the same scope. Second case on which we are working on, as for Zero Ready project, particularly the Lithuanian partner, is having a monitoring system to evaluate, to assess the progress of the national or local strategies for industrial modernization. In this case, the process starts from several for Zero Ready practice shared by Navarra, for instance, and Wallonia, and the same Tuscany to the other partners. The Lithuanian partners want to develop a sort of evaluation system, both qualitative and quantitative, in order to evaluate the progress of own strategies. And the idea is just to apply for this system, to use this system periodically, so to can monitor the single progress. And in the next month, we'll launch just a pilot action at this purpose in order to test such system born from the experience from the lesson learned during the project on a selected number of SMEs, so to can then scale up this system during mainly in the next programming period, because obviously we are going to finish this one. Well, I think to give to an idea about our project, this is my last slide. There is probably only one group photo we have physically, because we did our kickoff in September 2019, but then the second one, unfortunately, have to be done in March 2020, and from such moment we shift all the activity on web. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorenzo. So it seems we have time for a question and answer with the second half of the speakers. If I could have all of you on screen, please. Thank you very much. So we have a question that goes, so we have heard that all of you have had to face new challenges in your projects due to the pandemic. So has this brought you a new positive opportunity that you had not considered or foreseen in the project?
The question is for me.
For all
yes.
three of you, but yeah, Lorenzo, you can go ahead,
yes.
please.
In any case, yes, it was an opportunity, not immediately, because at the beginning we lost a couple of months because we thought to can postpone some events, but then we realized that it was impossible. Yes, was in our case an opportunity because the health emergency forced small and medium enterprise and as well the managing authority to support the shift of the activity of the same enterprise on web, on digital tools. So several new funding scheme prepare really in few months were launched in order to support this quick process of transferring of the business from the physical to the digital one. And in this process, also for Zero Ready project, was integrated in all the participant regions. So we had the opportunity to get policy improvement before than expected, and just during the interregional learning process.
I think from the Kent perspective, yeah, I guess probably the negatives outweighed the positives, but there were some good things. I think we found that the support for businesses in our region and in our partner regions has had to be very flexible, and that's been good because, as I said, one of the barriers to helping SMEs is they're very busy. So I think making available resources online, making content and webinars and advice available online and virtually has been positive. And I think just to give an example, through our SCI project, we were delivering some pilot actions I mentioned through our export manager voucher scheme. So one of our companies that we supported is a life science company. They supply medical tissue to customers in different markets across the world. And I think thanks to the pandemic, because people had by that point got very used to working digitally, we were able to set up a call with a Chamber of Commerce in Korea, which was one of their target markets, and we were able to make some contacts for them in that market to get kind of their materials, their marketing translated into Korean for a market where they had strong interest. So I think that was helped and accelerated by the fact that there was this shift to digitalization for some of the SME support that was out there. So yeah, I think we'll be looking at that sort of thing going forward, I think, to adapt and make the most of the opportunities that are now presenting themselves as the world's become smaller, I think, which is good for SMEs.
Right. So let me add our perspective, and I think it's a great question, of course, to also think of, you know, what came with this challenge or with these barriers. And I think, as Steve was just saying, it's a similar situation with us, that through the digital meetings and whatever else, we were able to include many more stakeholders than maybe would have been able to otherwise. And the focus can be more deep and more in depth maybe during these exchanges and learning workshops that are conducted online. And we are still hoping to be able to do some twinning activities in person. We'll see how this progresses, but also there in hope that we can now more properly or more adequately prepare this exchange. I think might also be a benefit that would come out of this. But of course, with our topic being also, you know, more the healthcare sectors, we were a little bit more behind maybe than others are, unfortunately, because the actors and stakeholders were just not in any way approachable during the last month. So yeah, so much from our side.
Yes, Jose, you raised your hand.
Yes. Well, just imagine 1 year back in the first days of March, from the day to the morning, 30,000 EU officials went to telework from the day to the morning. After 2 days of collapsing our servers, our IT specialist in the Commission managed to get 30,000 people working from home from the day to the morning. 1 year and a half ago, teleworking was just an option. Now it's 1 year we are teleworking. And virtually I'm going everywhere in the world. And I go very often to Spain, more often even than before, but virtually, because in practice I go to from my bed to my office home, like everyone. No, now joke apart from what were our activity in the first months. I'm also, besides being the COSME manager, I'm also the SME desk for Spain. So I participated in the negotiations of the RRF, and I follow the economic policy in the field of SMEs in Spain. So in the first months of the pandemic, together with the other colleagues, the other SME desks of the other countries, we monitored, well, we watched what every member state took as measures, you know, to alleviate the burden for SMEs in the first months of the pandemic. And we collected that, and through an instrument we have in COSME, which is the SME Envoy network that regroup all the director generals for SME policy in the member states. We have shared the best practices of each one, and we have shared with them that collection of measures that everyone has taken. So because this is our role, to coordinate and to provide best practices to everyone. Then from the COSME program, yes, we had to adapt. I mean, lots of events canceled, reshifting money from one side to the other, because I mean, if we cannot organize one thing, we can organize another one. So and then you have activity like the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, which is a mobility scheme, which is a challenge in this period to have a mobility scheme and to reshift it towards having this mobility from home because of the pandemic. And yes, it has been a challenge, and it's still a challenge to organize the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. And which is really, I hope the situation will come back to something more normal, because this will take time. We all know that. To have this activity being organized in a proper way, because this experience from home from wanting to be entrepreneur from home is a bit difficult. It's much better to have this real contact with the entrepreneurs, the experienced entrepreneur providing to the wanting to be entrepreneur is experience and knowledge and know-how, which is, I believe, more difficult from home than being there in the physical company, feel it and work it, you know. On the other hand, the Enterprise Europe Network, well, they had to adapt, and they quite quickly turned to providing also advice relating to the crisis on helping identifying disruptions in the value chain giving information on SMEs on how they could help and how they could seize opportunities. Also, the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, they quite quick provided a tool for public authorities to communicate to companies, just to identify critical supplies or disruptors of production, and to also give opportunities to SMEs to identify in which ways they could help by just modifying their production or seizing the opportunity to produce. These are a few examples. In other programs like Horizon, they accelerated, for example, in the SME instrument, the call for proposals for medical supplies, for putting into the market medical supplies. And every program, I think, has more or less contributed. Further than the call for tenders for buying the vaccines, which is the more prominent thing we have seen in the news.
Yes, it seems that throughout this event, we've listened and we've learned more about the good practices and the programs, the projects that have been put in place, that have adopted and have learned how to go beyond the challenges presented to us by the pandemic. So I think on that note, our event has come to a close. So thank you once again to all of you, our dear speakers, for joining us today and for the information you have shared with us. If you could all maybe switch on your camera and we could take a quick photo. Also to our participants who have joined us, thank you very much. So on behalf of URADA and Info Murcia, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us and interacting with us this morning. We hope to see you again in one of Scale Up's future events. For instance, in July, we will be having our final conference, so please stay tuned for that. Thank you again. And we are going to take the photo now. All right, so I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ivana. And Jack.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.